reason I am speaking with you today is because I am a 2011 Corps member and I have a severe dyslexic learning disability. So I'm just going to start off telling you a little bit about my life and my learning struggles.
Yeah.
I grew up in San Diego, California in a single parent household with my mother. I was tested into gifted and gay program in second grade, and then a year later, which my mom was like, no, that's not possible. Like, it's not possible, but it's not something she needs to be doing because homework assignments in regular classrooms are already challenging. She's spending 3 hours on a homework assignment in second grade that should take 15 minutes and is taking 15 minutes for every other student. So then a year later, when those struggles kept happening and things weren't getting any better, my teacher recommended me to get tested in the special ed class. And so I got tested, and it turned out I had a pretty severe learning disability. When I got diagnosed in third grade, I was actually recommended to be in a fully self-contained classroom. And I actually was pulled out for English all the way until high school. So I was actually pulled out all the way through elementary school and through middle school. And then when I got to high school, they decided that I could stay in a regular classroom. And my mom told me after I graduated high school and was accepted to college, she told me a few things that teachers had shared with her throughout the years. About my ability, and a majority of it was not good. Most people did not think that I could go to college, go to graduate school, hold like a high, like a job with a lot of responsibility. One teacher actually told my mom that I should just stop taking regular ed classroom stuff, do special ed classroom, and then participate in the hospitality program at my high school so that I could become a receptionist because I seem to really enjoy social interactions with other people, and that would be a really good thing. I think that's unfortunate because she was putting a glass ceiling on me. That was very much her, like, saying this is what you can accomplish, and clearly you can't accomplish this, so this is what you should be doing. Part of my learning disability is that root memorization and other sorts of like recall sort of things, like spelling things, I can't do very well. So I never learned my times tables actually in mathematics. That's another component of my dyslexia. It actually touches all of the components of my life, but calculus was a component to graduate at UCSD. It scared me a lot, but for some reason, even though I wasn't successful at learning my times tables, I actually got an A in calculus in my second semester of calculus at University of California, San Diego.
How did you do that?
I think it's problem-solving skills, and I think it's sometimes we lose sight of the fact that even though someone doesn't have these like minute little detailed steps in the beginning of things, like I never used times tables in calculus. I used a calculator in calculus. And so even though I could not tell you how to, you know what I mean, what a multiple of a number equals, I can tell you the derivative of something.
Yeah.
Which I think is really like, I don't know, I think that's such a big thing because I don't know. I think teachers get so focused on the fact that students can't do this thing and they think they never can do something else. And I think people sometimes put limits on people based on what they see them doing, and just stop them right there and say, that is the most you can achieve because this is what you're doing. When really, you don't know. Maybe those higher order concepts are going to be easier for them to achieve at. Like calculus was much easier for me than learning my times tables. Go figure, you know. And I memorized all the formulas in calculus. It's just the fact that it was that my dyslexia, like the component of my dyslexia specifically, like was about those like sort of number patterns and all that stuff, and I just couldn't do it. Advocacy means being able to articulate what you need and to be successful, and articulate that to yourself, and then figure out how you're going to get that. And I think for teachers and parents, advocating for your children and then teaching your children how to be advocates. I actually had a conversation with my mom last night about this, and she was saying how for a while she knew that she wanted me to go to college all through elementary school after I got diagnosed and then had my IEP. She told me she knew she wanted me to go to college, but she wasn't sure how she was going to get me there. Because she didn't know how to operate the system, and it's hard to advocate for someone in a system that you don't know how to operate. And then I had a 5th grade teacher who actually had a son who had an IEP all through high school and was now in college, and she told my mom, I know it's tough, but you'll get there, and she can do this. And kind of help my mom talk about the system and how that works. And then it set my mom up to be such a great advocate for me in the future. But that was one teacher 1 year. My mom said that as a teacher, you could probably be a better advocate for your students than she was able to be for me, which I think is a really huge statement, because I think my mom was an incredible advocate for me. But I think you can, because you have all these resources that it's your job to be an advocate for your students. And so you have all these resources at your disposal that parents might not necessarily have. And then informing your parents about how to be advocates for your students, that is setting your students up for a lifetime of just successes, because now you've got this way to manipulate the system in order for your student to be successful. Problem-solving skills are key, and I think that has helped me compensate in my life, just daily activities, how am I going to do this if I have this amount of time to do it, and just figuring out ways to make things happen when it looks like it can't get done.
Right.
For example, I transferred from San Francisco State to UCSD. I met with 5 guidance counselors, all of whom told me not going to happen. I called the university. The admissions lady told me can't happen. You would have to exceed your number of units to meet our qualifications in order to come here. And then I just kept asking people, and I kept trying to figure out how I could work my way into that school, because that's where I really wanted to go.
Right.
And I met one person who said, you're going to have to manipulate the system to make this happen, but we can do it.
Right.
And that's what I did, and I graduated from University of California, San Diego. Small successes are important because they allow you to remove yourself from the big picture problem. For example, Courtney cannot write an essay. Let's remove ourselves from that big picture problem, which I encountered in 7th grade. And my mom enrolled me in hearing therapy and in vision therapy, which allows me to track things, and then auditorily they sort of hear phonetics that I don't naturally hear or didn't naturally hear. I don't naturally hear them, but I sort of gained some skills to help me break apart words and stuff for grammar and spelling and all that stuff. So then taking those small successes, because I was able to complete both programs, and then putting them towards the bigger success. So removing yourself from the big problem at first, and then putting it towards the big problem, and taking small problems and putting it towards the big problem. And then also I would say letting those small successes inform your thinking about what that person can accomplish. Using those new skills and applying it to the next thing, as opposed to being okay, so now you've done these, but think about all the other components of an essay that you have to do. Really, are you going to be able to write an essay? Probably not. As opposed to that mentality, using these new skills and yes, you accomplished that. So now we can push forward, and we're gonna do the best we can, and using the fact that you accomplished something to inform the fact that you can succeed, and to let that be where you're going, sort of stuff. To not allow the task to become so overwhelming that you choose not to move forward, even though you've accomplished these things and stop there, but to keep going because you did accomplish these things and you can move forward. yes, I'll never be able to write a strong essay, but I can be a physician and dictate to somebody, and they can write a research paper for me, like as I dictate it. I don't have to physically write that essay, and they'll write it better than me, you know? Throughout school, I had a lot of teachers who told me that it wasn't possible for me to graduate high school, and it wasn't, I would never be a high achiever. I had a math teacher who said that very clearly one day after school in tutoring. Really pointed out to me, I had stayed every day after school, and one student who came one day the whole year sat next to me and pointed to me back and forth from me to him, no matter how hard you work, you will always get a B, and he will get an A with no work. Like, you will get a B, he will get an A. Back and forth. He must have done it like 10 times, and I will never forget that moment. That is the moment I remember when I am studying for a test. That's the moment I remember when things get really rough. I think back to that and think like, no, like I can get that A. I can be successful. And I think letting that like motivate me, like breaking all those glass ceilings that people put on me motivate me to be successful, because in the end it's really about my motivation, not what you think I can do.